So I'm Alan Morrison. I'm head of music at Creative Scotland, and Creative Scotland's the body that, the public body that distributes the Scottish Government and the National Lottery's money for culture in Scotland, which means, in a music sense, we are involved in funding albums and tours and festivals, although we give money out across all the art forms. So I've been in this job for 5 years, and in that period, we've supported Independent Venue Week annually. How I see the organisation is that it not only shines a light on the great venues and the people that work there that we have up here in Scotland, but also on particularly our rising music talent. And almost most importantly as well, it brings those two things together with audiences. And as you know, Scottish audiences are world famous for their passion for music. So I always like the fact that public funding can add that little bit extra to a project. So in this case, with this show, it's ensuring that we've got the highest tech broadcast possible standard of quality to this, but also that we can put the spotlight on a leading female artist and a rising teenage star. So it's giving that sort of access as well, and that works through to some of the other things we work with on that kind of strategic level with Independent Venue Week, in that working with the Thera Trust and Gig Buddies to be able to give confidence to people with learning difficulties and autism who want to go to gigs as well.
Fantastic. It's certainly been a great success over the last 8 years, and fingers crossed in years to come we'll just build on what we've been doing since Creative Scotland's involvement. Now, Creative Scotland, obviously I'm slightly biased, but they've really stepped up to the mark over the last 15 months in assisting the Scottish music industry. Can you say what sort of big successes you feel there's been?
Yeah, I mean, we've been out of the offices in Glasgow and Edinburgh since last March. And but having to keep our normal work going, funding the regular big organisations up here, allowing our open fund to let individual artists get some money to get projects going. But the big difference, obviously, has been that we've been instrumental in distributing a lot of the Scottish Government's COVID emergency funds. And in music terms, and specifically, say for example, the Grassroots Music Venues Stabilisation Fund, that was 6.2 million we helped inject into the venues to keep them going when the doors were shut. 6.2 million, from the borders to the islands, right across the country. And then things like the cultural organisations and venues recovery fund. Sometimes you just wish it was the acronym, the COVER fund, as we call it. I mean, this was a chance for us to do something that we don't normally do as a public body that's like an arts council. We were able to get money to the commercial side of the music industry. Quite often there's regulations that stop a body like ours giving public funding to for-profit businesses, but in this way we were able to help out to an extent while the work had dried up, people like promoters and PA hire companies and lighting companies. So as well as those as well, we did 3 rounds of individual hardship funds for artists of all types across all genres, and that was just getting small amounts of money to people just literally so they could pay the bills. Thousands of people across Scotland were musicians, tech crews, DJs, managers. So in a way, we've done like equivalent of 2 years' work of amounts of funding going out there in 1 year. And you've got to remember that even though Creative Scotland is seen as a big organisation, we're made up of individual human beings who, my colleagues have done themselves proud this year because we've been all homeschooling and caring and working from home just like everybody else.
Yeah. No, I've had the misfortune of obviously talking to particularly your music officer, Jamie, on quite a lot of occasions. And Jamie, I think the homeschooling's been a wee bit of an eye-opener for Jamie in particular, having the young ones. Yeah. So on behalf, obviously we've got 24, 25 of the venues on your list, I know because I've talked to them all, of independent venue weeks in Scotland, like you say, from right up the top to very much the Scottish borders have been assisted by Creative Scotland. So on behalf of all of them, I said to a few of them, I was interviewing you as well, they've always talked very highly of the life-saving work, literally the life-saving work that Creative Scotland's done for the last 15 months. So thank you very much on behalf of the independent venues of Scotland. And obviously we're coming out at, fingers crossed, looking forward to this year now. And the end of this nightmare, what you most looking forward to between the end of the summer and going forward in the rest of 2021?
Well, I think like everybody else, it's just that chance to get up close and physical at a gig again, isn't it? But I suppose maybe, particularly maybe with this job, then the other thing I've been missing is getting around the country and even being out internationally. My favourite part of the job is flying the flag for the music industry. I love just being up there and talking up whatever genre it is, whether I'm at a jazz expo or a classical convention or whatever. I just think that the music we make in Scotland is just the best in the world in every single genre, and it's an absolute privilege to be able to get out there and talk about it, and sometimes be able to actually help in a way get the musicians some foreign bookings, whether it's touring or a new agent in a different territory and things like that. That is the best bit of the job. So being able to do some of that again is something I'm massively looking forward to. I think the other thing I'm looking forward to seeing as the father of a 14-year-old music lover who was 14 during lockdown and is champing at the bit because she's not been able to go to a 14+ gig yet because nothing's happened. I think to see a new generation, I mean, if it's going to be 18 months at best, maybe when people get out there, there's almost like a new generation who are going to get that type of live gig again for the very first time. And
Yes.
that's just going to be a joy to see that rekindled within the next generation.
Totally agree with you. There's so many people, like you say, not seen, and obviously I see you and Jamie so often at gigs over a 12-month period. To not see you two face to face for 12 months has been hard. So fingers crossed we get a wee dram sometime soon. From a business perspective, so many Scottish companies that one of the new words that's come through over the last 15 months is pivot. And there's so many businesses, freelancers had to pivot over the last 12 months. What have any of these businesses, Creative Scotland in particular, involved in? And sort of helping the companies repivot and retrain and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our funding, but particularly in the first few months, it was about how do people discover new ways of working, whether that's organisations or individuals. It's like my gigs have gone overnight. My livelihood has evaporated. What am I going to do with my creative energy? So we saw a lot of people come to us, and we were able to give them some funding for maybe little bits of equipment, or ways to cover artistic fees to be able to start broadcasting their own shows, whether that's from their own houses or some of them that we've done that have been done with professional crews. For example, Stanley Odd did one just on Saturday night there down from that was recorded at Leith Theatre, and that was like an hour-long broadcast quality show. So we were able to help with some of that. We also, with our, with a good example for helping somebody with our larger scale regular funding would be Celtic Connections,
Yes.
who put on not just, we can't do the normal festival, we'll do a weekend. It was 2.5 weeks of a couple of gigs every single night, using as many different venues in Glasgow as they could, so that it wasn't, the emotional thing in that wasn't even just seeing live music again, it was seeing the inside of Oranmore or the Old Fruit Market or the Glasgow Royal Concert Hall. It was just lovely to be in some way back in those venues again. So we've kind of been helping with that pivot. One thing I think I've noticed in the last few months is that the music applications coming to us are very much about recording albums. Obviously, what else can we do at the moment? There's not anybody really able to play gigs, but there's a lot of fantastically good writing being going on in the last year, and now we're helping people record it so that when venues and festivals do get running again, audiences can be really excited because there's going to be all their favourite bands with a whole load of new material to take out there.
Here, totally agree with you. And for the first time in my life, having been able to see every Celtic Connection show this year, because it was only one or two a night, it was fantastic. You weren't literally running about Glasgow like a blue-ass fly, basically, all night, every night, and it was phenomenal, apart from not seeing Donald Shaw running about equally over the city. But the standard of music they guys produced this year, I thought, I'm biased maybe, I thought it was the best Celtic Connections yet. And we are talking about all the shows you guys have started to create money in. I think, off the top of my head, the Twilight Sad show at Oranmore, The Mogwai show from Tramway and the Fratelli show that Big Ian Mackey, who did this show for us at his studio, those three in particular were phenomenal. Like you say, it was absolute broadcast quality. And when you see the likes of South by Southwest going online and you see the quality of their shows, the shows we've done from Scotland has been actually the equal, if not better, than stuff I've been seeing from all over Europe for the last 6 months. And hats off to the whole team, from your team onwards. And Ian, as I said, Ian, as you'll see with this show when it's finished, Ian Mackey's team are just absolute superstars. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to a lot of those people, and some of them weren't even ones that did come into funding for us. I know that Mogwai and Twilight Sad, they weren't ones we funded. Not that I didn't sit down and watch them as soon as they were broadcast. They were great shows. I think we set the bar really high in Scotland right at the start, because I think that Biffy Clyro show at the Barrowlands might even be in my top 20 gigs of all time, and I wasn't even physically there.
Yeah. Mon the Biff, as we all say.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, as I said, we've always talked about the close relationship between you and your team and Independent Venue Week for the last few years, but we're going forward now. We're looking at 2022 and very much already booking shows, would you believe, for our 10th anniversary in 2023. So what's the inspirations for Creative Scotland and Independent Venue Week that you can see is growing? We went from 3 or 4 venues the first year I was involved to 27 venues last year. And when I looked at the Creative Scotland list of people you funded through those 2 or 3 rounds of grants, I've actually now got another 12 venues signed up thanks to the Creative Scotland. Just basically a few venues that weren't even on my map. And I consider myself that I know every venue in this country, but there was one down the borders I'd never even heard of. So they're now signed up thanks to you guys as well. So that will take us to mid-30s for next year and beyond.
I mean, I think, as we look ahead to continuing to work with Independent Venue Week, I think that, together we can see how Independent Venue Week can be an absolutely key player in the road to recovery for the live music sector. That even next January, there might be some people who are still lacking the confidence to get back to the gigs, but just the extra push the Independent Venue Week can give is really, I think, going to help with that, because it's great for us to be connected in Scotland with this UK-wide institution, and all that BBC Radio 6 backing that it gets. It's really good to be part of that. I think one of the other things that I'm looking forward to working in the future is, as I said, it's that thing of how we can add the extra through our funding. So the fact that we can become partners and look at increasing diversity and equality and inclusion and access to live music, whether it's as performers, whether it's as the tech crews, whether it's people working and owning the venues, and whether it's the audiences themselves, just to create a stronger and more diverse live music scene. I think Independent Venue Week is one of the perfect partners for us to work with on that. Thank
you for that. No, as I said, this show this year, to get Amy, who's an absolute pleasure to work with, I actually knew her right at the start. Way back when she started out for the first album, she'd done a tour of Bean Scenes with me way back, and to see her growing, and she's such an absolute, her and her management team are wonderful to work with, and to see young Connor just starting out in his career as a 14-year-old and see the two of them working together. As I said, this show was an absolute dream from beginning to end, as you'll see when it goes live in a few days' time. So just to finish off, as I said, I know you're doing this late for us, so we're well appreciated. Anything else you want to add before we finish up?
It's just, I was thinking the other day, what's the big surprises that I've maybe seen in the last year, apart from Lionel Messi still playing for Barcelona. It's like, in music terms, is it really anything? Has anything really surprised me? And I was thinking, I'm not surprised that so many of the Scots acts have done so well with finding audiences online. It's almost expected. I know the talent's there, and the gumption and the know-how and just the ambition to change around the way of working. So I wouldn't say maybe I've been surprised over the last year. I'd say I've been impressed with what people have done up against some of the hardest circumstances they've had in their life, and they've kept their creativity flowing, and they've kept entertaining the audiences. and that has just been brilliant to see and be a part of.
Fantastic. What a way to finish off. So optimism for the whole of 21 and 22 and beyond. Thanks very much for your time, my friend, and hopefully we'll see you bopping away at a gig sometime soon. Cheers, Alan. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
That was nice and easy, wasn't it?
Aye, yeah.
Well, I said, hopefully get to see you and our daughter at a gig. So Sneakies is talking about starting 1st of September. So is King Tut's. They're looking at start of September. I still can't believe Jeff's talking about Transmit. I personally don't think it'll happen.
Well, we've been, you know, I mean, doing the rabbit hole don't come into us anymore. And I'm looking at that thinking, and do you know what?
His court case is tomorrow.
Aye.
So apparently he's been found guilty and his sentence is tomorrow. And I still, having followed his blog religiously, I still don't see what he done wrong. He's been found in contempt of court for the Alex Salmon trial for his blogging of that. And I don't, honestly, I read his blog every night and they've said they identified 2 of the participants. Now, for my sins, I know 4 of the people involved in that trial. And I don't know how he identified any of them. I actually thought Danny Garibaldi, the Scotsman, and Kirsty Watt, the 2 people that should have been charged with contempt of court, because their interviews clearly identified 1 individual, as far as I'm concerned. Admittedly, I know the individual concerned. But I thought they both identified it. I'm not convinced Craig Murray did, but he's sentenced tomorrow. And if he gets sentenced, it could affect doing the rabbit hole, because he basically funds it. Although his sons are basically the main man, Craig Murray's behind it all.
All right. That makes sense.
I'm dying to go. I've never made doing the rabbit hole, and I've already sorted out that'll be there this year.
Yeah, I mean the other one the other one that seems, I don't know, is that one, the new one that they're doing out in East Lothian, the East Festival, and it's at a place they've never had a festival before at Long Nidri, and they're announced, you know, they've announced like Sister Sledge and various other people, and they're aiming for about they're saying 6,000 people first weekend of August weekend camping festival. I'm not sure how something like that can really. Yeah, I mean it's going to be next Monday that the next round of First Minister announcing.
Nicola's next announcement's tomorrow.
But no, I just
fingers crossed. But no, I said with the bandstand cancelling all their gigs, I've actually been speaking to Ian Smith in the Last Night from Glasgow team, because all the albums they're putting out under the Past Night from Glasgow label. Because I spoke to Glasgow Life on their behalf, and Glasgow Life are reckoning they're not going to get 2,200 in the bandstand. So that's why Regular had to cancel all the gigs. They do reckon you get 900 people in the bandstand. So I thought, well, you're putting out re-releasing albums with the Bluebells and Kevin McDermott and the Trash Cans. You could easily do all those bands in the bandstand for over a weekend or a 2 or 3 day thing, maybe by August. So fingers crossed. I'm involved behind the scenes and pulling that together for them. So fingers crossed we can pull that off.
All right, good.
I still love the bandstand. The bandstand being an outdoor venue should work before anything else.
Yeah, we'll get out there eventually. As I say, it's just missing it no being down in Brighton this week, and 2 weeks ago should have been over in Bremen for Jazz Ahead 2 weeks ago, and next month should be getting off to Rotterdam for Classical next, and can't do any of that.
Tell me about it. I mean, obviously this time last year was we cancelled the night before I was going to South by Southwest, because I was leaving early last year, so I've missed 2 South by Southwest. Like we should be in Brighton next week having a wee bit of fun, but I'll get back at some point. Fingers crossed.
We will.
Okay, well, lovely to talk to you. I'll let you go and tea, and I'll speak to you sometime soon.
Good. Okay. Cheers, then.
Cheers, Alan.
Bye.
Bye, my friend.